Hi, I'm Irene Tansman, author of Abby and Arlene's Autism War. If you have a loved one that's enrolled in rehabilitation in Massachusetts, or if you're considering rehabilitation for your loved one with intellectual or developmental disabilities and/or autism, please consider joining the Rehabilitation Families in Massachusetts Facebook group. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about autism history. Can you imagine getting the diagnosis of your loved one as a little kid and being told that you're actually the cause of it? So today I'd like to talk a little bit about autism history. The historical novel that I just completed writing illustrates how an erroneous theory regarding the cause of autism was the source of pain and grief for a particular autism family, fictional autism family that I was writing about. I am in the process of trying to get my book published. I feel very passionate about this issue, but I expect that the process for obtaining a literary agent is going to be a long, grueling process with an uncertain outcome. But I'm going to try as hard as I can. Now, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this history. And a little bit about maybe why I decided to write this book. I wrote about a fictional couple who suffered from a blunder in the medical and psychological communities here in the US. The toxic mother as a cause of autism theory. This theory gained popularity in the US from 1943 until the mid-1980s and beyond. In 1985, the theory began to fall out of favor when neurologists discovered biological differences in the brains of individuals diagnosed with autism. However, there are still remnants of this destructive theory in the medical, psychological, and educational communities today. Dr. Leo Kanner, and Kanner is spelled Kanner, but it's pronounced Kanner. A lot of people want to call it Kanner, but it's actually Kanner. Dr. Leo Kanner was an Austrian-American psychiatrist, and he introduced the label autism in 1943. Even back then, he predicted the need for research into genetics. He described some individuals with autism as having an innate disorder. While he suggested that parenting could contribute to the development of the condition, he also suggested that the aloneness of these children was present early on, and that was suggesting that the condition was not just a result of poor parenting. Kanner later recanted the beliefs that poor parenting might be the cause of autism or even a contributor to autism at a meeting of the National Society for Autistic Children, which is now called the Autism Society of America. He also wrote the foreword to Dr. Bernard Rimland's book, Infantile Autism, the Syndrome and its Implication for a Neural Theory of Behavior. Rimland's book refuted the poor mothering theory. The person most responsible for the promotion of the toxic mother theory was Bruno Bettelheim. There are many people today who do not know that Bettelheim has been discredited. One of my favorite nonfiction authors who writes wonderful books about ethics and human relationships quoted Bettelheim in one of his books. Neither he nor his publishers, nor his editors, nor his critique partners, nor his beta readers knew that he was quoting a discredited charlatan who had caused an already suffering community an unbearable amount of pain. In Bettelheim's heyday, he enjoyed great fame. Bettelheim was the appointed director of the Sonia Shankman Orthogenic School for Disturbed Children at the University of Chicago in 1944. He held that position until 1973. In Bettelheim's early years at the school, the students at the Orthogenic School most likely did not carry the diagnosis of autism. Between 1956 and 1963, the Ford Foundation provided a grant to Bettelheim to study autism. Of the 220 children who entered the school between 1944 and 1973, only 13 arrived with a diagnosis of autism. However, those diagnoses were never confirmed, so we don't even know if they had autism. Bettelheim wrote a popular column for the Ladies' Home Journal. That was a popular women's magazine for those of you who are too young to remember. In 1967, he published an article, The Empty Fortress, Infantile Autism and the Development of Self. He published this in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Diseases. This article was cited at least 709 times. He later published a book of the same title. This book became a bestseller. Scientific American called Bettelheim's work with autistic children demonstrably successful. The New Republic called Bettelheim a hero of our time. Newspapers across the country praised the empty fortress, including the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune. Bettelheim appeared on NBC's Today Show and on the Dick Cavett Show. And I want to add here, he had only anecdotal evidence, and we don't even know, it seems that that evidence was falsified, but that's all he presented was anecdotal evidence, and all of these, this media, they bought it, hook, line, and sinker. In November 1990, the Chicago Tribune finally raised questions about Bettelheim's credentials. Bettelheim committed suicide in that same year. In 1997, Richard Pollack published a biography of Bruno Bettelheim called The Creation of Dr. B, and I recommend that everybody read that book. This book exposed Bettelheim for the charlatan he was and discredited his credentials, his works, and his theories. Bettelheim acquired his post at the Orthogenic School by claiming he previously worked with two autistic individuals whom he and his first wife had taken into their home. Later in his career, he professed to have academic credentials in psychology. Bettelheim held a PhD in aesthetics. This is related to art, but never had any real credentials in psychology, psychiatry, or child development. Gina Bettelheim, his first wife, had in fact taken in a young girl with special needs into their household, but the girl did not have autism. Also, according to interviews conducted by Pollack, Gina was responsible for this young girl. Bettelheim didn't have much to do with raising the girl. While Bettelheim claimed to be an expert on autism, he had neither the education nor extensive experience working with this population. In 1985, neurologists Dr. Margaret Bauman and Dr. Thomas Kemper published a study in the peer-reviewed journal Neurology. This study compared post-mortem autistic brains to control matched brains. Their discovery demonstrated for the first time that autism is related to biological abnormalities in brain development and not to poor parenting. And I was very fortunate to have Dr. Margaret Bauman as my son's neurologist, and I was never told that I was the cause of it. In fact, she tried to make it clear to me that there was absolutely nothing that I could have done to cause my son to have autism. But there were many people who had to go through this experience, and I wanted in my book to show that. The process of of learning history helps us understand the past so that we can avoid making the same mistakes again. I hope that knowing this history will help you understand why remnants of the blame the mother theory is still present in our culture today. Now, I hope you'll consider buying my book, Abby and Arlene's Autism War, and I'll thank you for watching this entire video. Please consider joining the Rehabilitation Families in Massachusetts Facebook group, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.